Welcome to Restoria. I'm Jenna, and this is your cozy corner for gentle bedtime stories. Each night, I'll share peaceful tales made to quiet your thoughts and guide you softly into sleep. So settle in, get comfy, and let the story carry you into rest. The story tonight is called Porch, Light Evening, Chapter 1. The light beneath the eaves. The chair is already swaying when Tom steps out, though the breeze tonight is barely a whisper. It rocks like it remembers him, like it's been waiting. He settles into it slowly, blanket tucked over his knees, the cup of tea warming his palms. The porch light hums behind him, a soft and steady glow pressed gently against the coming dark. It doesn't reach far, just enough to soften the edges of the steps, the corners of the porch, the gentle arc of gravel leading back to the road. There's a hush that seems to settle as he sits, a quietness that isn't empty but full of small things. The settling of the house behind him, the soft groan of the porch boards as they adjust to the shift of weight. The sigh of leaves rubbing gently against one another in the wind. The book rests on the little side table, unopened. It's always there, but Tom hasn't turned a page in weeks. Not since the evenings began to stretch out longer, the sky taking its time to darken, as if the day were hesitant to leave. Out here, things unfold slowly. A squirrel rustles in the branches above, its tiny claws ticking over bark. A car far down the road passes with a long, low sigh of tires on gravel. The wind carries the smell of honeysuckle and fresh earth, and Tom closes his eyes for a moment just to feel it all. Somewhere in the fields beyond the trees, a cow lowing, then the chirr of crickets tuning themselves like old violins. The air is warm enough to be kind, but not so warm that it presses. He breathes in, breathes out. The porch creaks beneath him, a slow rhythm in time with the rocking chair, a rhythm he's come to trust. Once, long ago, the porch had been crowded full of cousins and coolers, lemonade sweating on tabletops, voices rising, screen door slamming, fireflies caught and released in jam jars. But that was then. Now the quiet suits him. The steady presence of the night wrapping itself gently around the bones of the house. The rocking slows, steadies. Tom shifts just enough to lean his head back against the wall, the wood warm from a day of sun. He listens for the familiar click of the neighbor's gate, the one that always drifts across the field just before 9. Tonight, it's late, or maybe it's early. Time doesn't mean quite the same thing here. It stretches out like the land, long, low, and without edges. A moth flits past the porch light, casting a jittery shadow. Tom watches it for a while, his eyes tracing its uncertain dance. There is something comforting in how small it all is. The details of dusk, the slow unfurling of evening's breath. The tea cools in his hands, untouched. He doesn't mind. It's part of the ritual. Sometimes he imagines that the porch light is a signal, not to anyone in particular, just to the world, that someone is still here, that the house still breathes, that the dark doesn't swallow everything. Tonight, like every night, he stays until the stars begin to blink open, slow and shy, behind the curtain of sky, the kind of stars you have to sit still to see. And when the last sip of tea is gone and the chair has rocked him into that special kind of stillness where thought becomes breath and breath becomes quiet, Tom stands. The porch creaks its farewell. He reaches back and flicks the switch. Darkness folds gently over the boards, and inside the house exhales. Tomorrow he'll come back, just like always. Chapter 2. The morning quiet. The sun hasn't quite risen when the house begins to stir. Not loudly, not all at once. Just the soft thrum of pipes waking up behind the walls, the whisper of wind slipping beneath the doorframe, the gentle creak of wood adjusting itself in the hush before light. Tom doesn't move right away. He's already awake, lying still beneath the quilt his mother stitched decades ago, pale blues and worn whites, patches of stars and pine trees. His eyes trace the shadows shifting across the ceiling, shaped by the branches just beyond the window. Outside, the sky is the color of old paper, soft gray, with a hint of gold waiting underneath. The birds aren't in full chorus yet, just testing their morning notes, uncertain and lovely. In the kitchen, the kettle waits, the cups wait. The world is full of things waiting to be touched, held, noticed. He sits up slowly, feet to the floor. The rug is cool beneath his toes. One breath, then another. It's quiet in the way only a house can be quiet, alive with old memories, softened by age. The floorboards groan under his weight as he walks to the window, pulling the curtain back just enough to see the line of hills beginning to warm with first light. The chair on the porch is still now, still and sure. A leaf rests on its seat. Tom smiles faintly, a half thought of brushing it away later. He lingers at the window, letting his hand rest against the frame. The wood is cool, textured, worn smooth in places where fingers have paused before. Beyond the glass, the trees stretch, their branches opening like slow yawns into the new day. Somewhere, a rooster calls, not sharp, not demanding, just a voice in the layered hush. The kitchen smells faintly of cinnamon and dust, the kind of scent that comes from years of cupboards holding secrets. He puts the kettle on without thinking, the motion practiced and calm. The burner clicks softly, a spark of warmth in the still room. While it heats, he leans against the counter, looking out the small window above the sink. The gravel road is empty, just the trees lining its edges, tall and slow in the wind. A rabbit darts across and vanishes into the underbrush. On the windowsill, a small collection of stones sits, each smoothed by time, each one kept without reason, except that it felt right to do so. He brushes a bit of dust from one, the flat gray one, shaped like a teardrop. The whistle of the kettle is gentle, more breath than cry. He pours the water slowly, steam curling like mist through the morning air. The scent of chamomile and orange peel rises, curling around him like a soft scarf. He carries the cup to the table, though he doesn't sit right away. He runs a hand along the back of the chair, smooth from years of use. Everything here has been touched 1,000 times. Nothing is new, but nothing is forgotten. When he finally does sit, he doesn't drink. Not yet. He watches the light grow stronger, pooling at the base of the hills, brushing gently against the siding of the house across the way. Someone else is awake now. A curtain moves. A porch creaks. A dog barks once, half-heartedly, then settles. It's not the same as the evening. Morning carries a different kind of stillness, one that feels like a beginning, like the house is gathering its breath before the world comes in. Tom finally lifts the cup, still warm in his hands. He sips slowly, closing his eyes. The tea is gentle, quiet on his tongue, the kind of flavor that feels like memory. He doesn't need much from the day, just this, a soft beginning, a house that knows his shape, a chair that waits. Outside, the wind picks up just enough to rustle the trees, just enough to remind him that the world keeps turning, but here, for now, he's still, and that's enough. Chapter 3. The Drawer Beside the Stove. By mid-morning, light fills the kitchen with a quiet confidence. It pools along the linoleum, paints the faded wallpaper in soft gold, and lays across the countertop like a warm cloth just pulled from the dryer. Tom moves without rush. The dishes from yesterday's supper sit rinsed and waiting to be put away. He stacks the plates slowly, listening to the soft clink of ceramic, the rustle of silverware as he slides it back into its drawer. There's a drawer by the stove that sticks it always had. He leans his weight into it, nudging it open until it sighs forward with a groan. Inside, a tangle of recipes, matchbooks from long-closed diners, half-burned candles, a small tin of buttons, a rubber band twisted around a deck of old playing cards. He doesn't need anything in the drawer, not really, but still, he lets his hand move through it, fingertips grazing paper and metal. The texture of time settled thickly over each object. He lifts one folded scrap of paper. It's yellowed and soft at the creases. A list written in a woman's careful hand, not his own. Potatoes, flour, cinnamon, mothballs. His breath catches, but only a little. Not from grief that pot has softened over the years, but from recognition. He remembers her voice, faint and sure, saying each word aloud as she wrote it. He folds the list again and places it back in the drawer, just where it was. Outside, a cloud passes and changes the light just slightly, just enough to shift the mood of the room. He watches the shadow move across the countertop, across the stovetop, where a pan still rests, clean but not yet returned to its place. He remembers the way she used to hum, in the mornings, half tunes with no name, little rivers of sounds slipping between the clatter of dishes. Sometimes he'd hum along, off-key but steady. Those mornings had felt endless. There's no reason to rush, no list waiting for him, only the slow, steady rhythm of a day with room for memory. Tom fills the kettle again, just enough for one more cup. The faucet creaks slightly, and the sound of the water is round and soft. He sets it on the stove and leans against the counter, arms crossed, eyes far away. He thinks of the market not because he needs anything, but because it's Saturday. He used to go every Saturday once upon a time. The same stalls, the same faces, fresh bread, still warm in the bag, tomatoes lined up like jewels, the hum of small conversations weaving through the air. Maybe he'll go, maybe he won't. The thought doesn't need to settle. The kettle whistles, just a whisper. He turns off the burner and pours the water, watching the tea leaves swirl in the bottom of the cup before they settle. Everything settles in time. He carries the cup to the front room this time. The sun is different there, filtered through old lace curtains. It moves like water across the worn floorboards. He sits in the old armchair that used to be her favorite. It sags a little more each year, but it still holds him gently. He breathes in the quiet, tea in hand, memory near. His eyes wander the room, the bookshelf full of cookbooks and bird guides, the small radio with the knob missing, the plant on the windowsill still stretching toward light. Every object has stayed where it always was. Nothing rearranged, nothing disturbed. He takes a sip, slow and soft. Let it settle, let it speak. The drawer remains open in the kitchen, just slightly, just enough. Some things don't need to be closed all the way. Chapter 4, A Walk to the Gate. The air outside is warm in a way that invites movement. Not heavy, just enough to brush the skin and remind it of the day. Tom steps off the porch with slow purpose, the screen door clicking shut behind him like a punctuation mark. The gravel shifts under his soles. He doesn't walk often, not far anyway, but today the road beyond the gate seems to call, soft and patient. He walks along the path beside the house, where the grass grows a little higher and wildflowers make quiet claims in the dappled shade. Queen Anne's lace, goldenrod, the kind of plants that don't need tending. The old gate at the edge of the property is still there, though the paint has long since flaked to reveal silvered wood beneath. It leans a bit more than it used to. 1 hinge whines as he opens it. He pauses, not because he's winded though he is, a little, but to take it in. The quiet of the fields, the slow motion of clouds above, the way the wind sighs over everything, as if remembering. Further down the gravel road, he can see the shimmer of the neighbor's mailbox. A bluebird flits from post to branch. Somewhere out of sight, the screen door thumps shut, and a child's laugh rises, light as thistle fluff. Tom leans both hands on the top rail of the gate, feeling the warmth of sun-soaked wood. His breath settles into the rhythm of the wind. He doesn't need to go farther. This is enough. The gravel beneath him smells faintly of dust and heat. There's a dragonfly hovering nearby, wings ticking against the stillness. He watches it drift, the sunlight catching on its body like green glass. He used to walk this road every evening with her, not to get anywhere, just to move, to breathe. Sometimes they'd talk, sometimes not. He remembers the way her hand felt in his warm, steady, always a little ahead of him. She'd pick a flower now and then, tuck it behind her ear without ceremony. He used to pretend not to notice, but always did. There had been a rhythm to it, the sound of their feet on gravel, the exchange of silence, the way the world made room for them. Memory tugs at the edges, not sharp, not sad, just present. He stays like that for a while, leaning, listening, letting the morning slip quietly into noon. Shadows stretch gently across the gravel. A single hawk circles high above, riding the current. Eventually, he turns. The walk back is slower, though not heavy, just the pace of someone who has nowhere to be but here. As he walks, his fingers graze the tops of the tall grass. He picks a small white flower without thinking, holds it loosely, lets its stem dangle between his fingers. As he steps onto the porch again, the screen door opens with the same familiar creak. The chair is waiting. The breeze is starting to rise. Inside, the kettle will still be warm. He might make another cup, but for now, he sits and listens to the gate click shut behind him. The kind of sound that says you're home again. Chapter 5. The Visitor. The afternoon brings a hush all its own. Not silence exactly, but a kind of softened pause. The air is warmer now, but not oppressive, just thick enough to make time stretch a little, like honey poured slow. Tom sits in the porch chair again, feet up on a small stool, his cup beside him half full and growing cooler. He doesn't drink it much these days. The act of holding it is often enough. The creak of tires on gravel stirs the stillness. A car, slow moving, awed by the sound of it. Tom lifts his head just enough to see the familiar shape of his niece's station wagon easing into the drive. She steps out gently, careful not to slam the door. Her son, the youngest, hops out beside her, all elbows and curious eyes. Tom doesn't rise, not immediately. He just nods as they approach. She smiles in that soft way of hers, a bit tired, but warm. "Hey, Uncle," she says, and her voice carries like music through the air. The boy waves, then darts toward the porch, his sneakers thudding softly on the wood. Tom reaches out, ruffles the boy's hair as he passes. "Getting tall," he murmurs. They settle into the porch together, she on the step, the boy with his legs tucked under him near the railing. They don't fill the space with chatter, just small words, soft ones, let loose like feathers. She's brought something wrapped in foil. Banana bread, the kind her mother, Tom's sister, used to make. He unwraps it slowly, breathing in the memory before taking a bite. The taste is perfect sweet, familiar, a little crumbly at the edges. He makes something loosen in his chest. Not grief, just the warmth of being remembered. They watch the afternoon light shift over the fields. The boy hums to himself, distracted by a trail of ants marching across the board. Tom follows his gaze, smiling a little. They still walk this porch, the niece says after a while, almost to herself, like it remembers their steps. Tom nods. The boards do remember, and the breeze, and the way the light settles in the corners. A breeze picks up and flutters the edges of the foil. The boy presses it down with one finger, his other hand still tracing ant trails. She asks about the garden that used to be, if the tulips still rise each spring. Tom nods again, tells her yes, a few brave ones still come. Yellow mostly, a little smaller now. She leans back on her hands, tilting her head to the sky. The clouds are slow moving and thick, the kind that might bring rain later, but not soon. They sit long enough for a dragonfly to skim the edge of the porch, for the boy to nap briefly, head resting on her knee, for a neighbor's dog to bark once in the distance, and then quiet. She stays a little longer, long enough for shadows to stretch and the air to take on that golden edge. When it's time to leave, the goodbye is quiet. No need for declarations. Just a squeeze of the shoulder, a light kiss on the temple, the boy's quick hug around Tom's middle. The station wagon rumbles off, the gravel crunching back into stillness. The porch settles. Tom stays in his chair. He breaks off another piece of banana bread, savors it slowly. The light is soft now, the kind of light that waits with you. Some visits don't need to be long, they just need to be true. Chapter 6. The weather radio. The wind shifts in the early evening, curling around the porch like a question. Tom notices the change in the air, a hush beneath the breeze, the stillness that often comes before rain. He finishes the last bite of banana bread, dusts the crumbs from his lap, and stands. The chair rocks once behind him. Inside, the house is cooler, dimmer. He moves through the kitchen slowly, pausing to rinse his cup and fold the foil from the bread into a neat square. He places it on the counter. There's a small weather radio on the shelf near the back door. Old, the dial worn smooth, the antenna slightly bent. It's been there longer than most things. He turns it on, and the familiar crackle fills the space. A voice, steady and clipped, begins its cycle. Wind out of the west, possible storms after dusk, scattered rain through the hills. Tom listens without much concern, the kind of forecast he's known 1,000 times. Still, there's comfort in the voice, its rhythm, its certainty. He adjusts the dial slightly, just enough to find the lull between words. that low static hum that sounds almost like a heartbeat, he leaves it off. In the living room, he switches on a small lamp. Its glow pulls gently over the rug, casting a soft halo across the floor. He picks up the book again, the one he never reads, and opens it this time, letting the pages fall where they will. The rain hasn't started yet, but it's coming. He can feel it in his knees, the gentle ache that always knows. Outside, the leaves begin to stir in a different rhythm. He reads a paragraph, maybe two. The words don't stay with him, but that's not the point. It's the act of holding the book, of seeing print and page, of letting quiet sounds fill the room. As the light fades, the soft flicker of distant lightning paints the far edges of the window, a kind of silver hush, still no thunder. Tom gets up once more, moves to the screen door, and steps onto the porch. The air smells rich now, the deep scent of wet earth waiting. He pulls the chair a little closer to the wall, tucks the blanket around his legs again, waits, and then it comes the first drop, then another, slow at first, patient. The porch roof catches it like a drum played gently with open palms. He listens to the soft rhythm, not hurried, not loud, just steady, like breath, like time remembering itself. The radio still murmurs from inside, a constant voice in a quiet world. It clicks over to repeat the forecast, unchanged. Somewhere down the road, a gust of wind sets the wind chimes singing from the neighbor's porch. Their tones float lightly, glass and metal twining together in lazy harmony. Tom closes his eyes. Rain and static, light and memory, the scent of soil and old wood. A moth lands on the edge of the blanket, its wings still as bar. He watches it for a moment, not moving. Another flash lights the sky closer now. A low rumble follows, like a voice too tired to raise itself. It rolls across the hills and fades into the folds of the trees. The storm deepens by degree. The rain thickens, tapping the porch roof with a steadier insistence. Still, he does not move. A memory surfaces a night like this, long ago. The two of them sitting close, a hand wrapped around his voice, her voice low and steady as they counted the seconds between lightning and thunder. He hears her laugh, soft and unhurried, like a page turning. Evening deepens. The storm, when it comes, does not rush. It simply arrives, and he is ready. Chapter 7. The Lantern Shelf. Morning comes late after a night of rain. The light is low and grey, filtered through clouds that still hold a little weight. The air smells washed like leaves and stone, and the softened promise of quiet. Tom moves slowly, not tired exactly, just wrapped in the hush that follows a storm. He brews tea without hurry. The sound of the kettle is louder in the stillness, and the clink of the spoon in the cup echoes gently through the kitchen. He carries the cup with both hands into the front room and places it carefully on the window table. Rain beads cling to the glass. The sky presses close. Birds are quiet, save for one, a mourning dove, its song low and slow like breath. On the far wall, there's a narrow shelf where Tom keeps a few small lanterns, old ones, some rusted, some dented, all gently used. They've sat there for years, silent witnesses to seasons shifting, one for summer storms, one for winter outages, one that never worked but once belonged to his father. He does them now, not because they need it, just because his hands want to do something slow. The shelf creaks under his touch, old wood greeting old hands. As he picks up the smallest lantern, a dry leaf flutters from behind it and lands on the floor. He smiles, a memory of autumn. He lights one of the lanterns, the one with the tall chimney and the crooked base. The flame is small but steady. It throws a soft circle of light onto the nearby wall, flickering gently with each breath of air. Tom sits nearby, watching it. The way it dances, the way it makes the room feel a little more like a held space. He thinks of all the times they lit lanterns together for power outages, yes, but also for fun, for the quiet, for the glow. One winter, they lit them all and read books aloud by their light, took turns choosing poems and sipping tea by the flicker. The memory warms him. There had been laughter, soft and low, the kind that settles around your shoulders like a shawl. They'd stayed up late, far past when the power returned, unwilling to let go of of the calm. He remembers how the lanterns had cast shadows that moved like water across the ceiling, how her voice had softened when reading something beautiful, how they'd fallen asleep in the chairs once, waking to find dawn leaning in through the windows. Outside, the sky stays low, but the rain doesn't return. Just the stillness, just the soft echo of the night before. He doesn't need much today. A warm cup, a slow hour, a quiet room lit by a lantern that still remembers how to shine. He stays there a long time, breathing, letting the light speak. The house, too, listens. The floor beneath him holds steady. The walls lean in just slightly, the way old houses do when they care, and holds him in its glow. Chapter 8. Evening once more. The day unfolds quietly. No errands, no phone calls, just the gentle passing of light across walls and windows. A long breath held softly between the edges of time. Tom spends it mostly in the front room, sometimes reading, sometimes not, sometimes watching the sky change its mind. Pale gray, a hint of blue, then back again. By late afternoon, the air turns golden, not bright, but deep, as though the sun is lighting everything from the inside out. Dust motes drift like lazy constellation. Tom rises and stretches. His joints speak to him, quiet but clear. He pats the back of the chair in a familiar rhythm and heads to the kitchen. The kettle whistles low, and he brews one last cup of tea for the day. Something floral, soft, the scent of dried petals lifting gently from the steam. He takes his time choosing a blanket, the faded one with the thick stitching, pale green and cream, soft from use. Then the cup, then the book, though he knows he won't read it. Outside, the porch waits, the chair rocks slightly in the breeze, as always. The porch light hasn't been switched on yet, but it will be. Tom settles in, the tea warms his hands, the blanket folds across his lap. He looks out over the gravel road, the trees beyond it, the hills softened by distance, and evening's hush. There are no cars now, no footsteps, just wind in the leaves and a quietness that feels like a friend sitting close. He watches the first star appear, faint and sure. Then another, the sky, slow and generous, offering its light without needing anything back. Tom leans back and lets the chair rock him, one creak at a time, one breath at a time. He thinks of the others who have sat here, his father, his sister, the neighbors who once came by just to say good night. He imagines their silhouettes in the fading light, all of them gathered like quiet stories waiting to be told. The wind changes and brings the scent of pine. Somewhere far off, an owl calls. The porch listens. When the cup is empty, he sets it down gently. The light beside the door flickers on. He doesn't rush. This is the part he loves, the moment before going in, when everything is still held, when the light says, just a little longer. He stays until the stars settle thick above him, a hush of silver over the roof. He stays until the chair stills, until the air says gently now. Eventually, he stands. He turns toward the house, toward the soft hum of home, and reaches for the switch. The porch light clicks off. The stars continue their slow conversation, and the house exhales